I thought I'd jump on today to discuss what God was showing me in my prayer time with Him this morning. As I was meditating on the Word and listening to the voice of God, God began to show me that life is broken up into seasons. And today I'd like to discuss the season of death, with particular focus on Joseph. So if you'll notice the character on the left hand side, that's Joseph when he was getting his visions as a young lad. And the visions probably puffed him up and made him feel more special, made him feel more favoured by God. And he told his visions to his dad Jacob and his brothers. And Jacob, I recall in the scripture, he even rebuked Joseph and said, "Are your mother and I to bow down to you, the sun and the moon?" In other words, he should stop this foolishness. Where is he getting all of this from? And obviously, subsequently, Joseph's dreams got him into a lot of trouble. He ended up being sold into slavery because of the betrayal of his brothers and ending up in Egypt. Of course, it was all part of God's plan. But I'd like to focus on Joseph's life, where he experienced the season of death, and mainly the death to self. So I'm focusing on the lower right-hand corner of Joseph's life, where there was nothing Joseph did particularly wrong, but he did end up in prison. He did end up isolated. He did end up being accused falsely. And God was showing me this morning that the season of death is very necessary before the season of elevation. And the reason why we go through the season of death before elevation is because when God gives us dreams and visions, and when He places the seed of greatness within us, it's very easy for us to become puffed up within our flesh, and for us to think that we can achieve these things in our own potential. So what happens for us to be able to decrease in the flesh and for the spirit to increase? We end up going through a wilderness experience in order that we might die to self. There's a big purging, that goes with that, and there's many nights where we'll spend on our knees crying. There's many nights we'll spend on our knees petitioning to God, asking Him, why are we going through this personal difficulty? Why is the betrayal there? Why is there a cutting away? Why is there an isolation? And we challenge God with, have you not shown me that I will, the sun and the moon will bow? Was it not you who showed me that the sun and the moon will bow down to me? Was it not you who showed me that my brothers would bow down to me? Why am I being punished? So there's many nights where we'll cry out to God with a similar sort of petition because of our environment where we find ourselves. how we find ourselves. And what's worse about this period of being in the wilderness or being in jail is that there will be a complete inability, you functioning within your own strength, that will be taken completely away from you. You'll have to learn how to move and breathe and have your being in God. You'll have to learn how to depend on Him for everything, to seek Him for everything, to acknowledge Him in everything. Because at the end of the day, the situation becomes so dire and so frustrating and so severe that there's no one who can fix it except God. So God puts us in this season of death where we come to the end of ourselves and we say, there's nothing more that we can carry forward or contribute to make the things that God has placed within us come to pass. And the season of death is very, very necessary in order that God is able to birth within us what He has placed within our hearts. So, I'll just backtrack a bit there. So, on the 18th of January 2022, I woke up to an audible vision, and in my spirit I heard, I am jealous, I am faithful. Now the reason why God does what He does is because He doesn't want anyone else to take the glory. He doesn't want anyone else to be elevated in a circumstance. It's only Him who will bring to fruition, and it's only Him who will get the glory. So if there's any idols in your life, including yourself or your flesh, those idols are purged and cut away so that God can be jealous of nothing, so that you can hunger and thirst only after Him, and that the fire, because the Bible teaches that God is a consuming fire, the fire that He brings will destroy every idol. Even the idol of, thinking that we are able to bring about things that only He can bring about within our own flesh. And then He reminded me that He is faithful. He is faithful to bring to pass what He's placed within us. He's faithful to do that. He's faithful to bring about what He said He would do. And so I feel, as I was praying today and as I was speaking to, sorry, it's gone too quickly. As I was speaking to my husband, what's in my spirit, and then from listening to the Spirit of God, I feel like there is a convergence. There's a convergence of everything He's placed within us, because there's a birthing getting ready to take place. So I feel like the season of death is now coming to an end, because the old system is going to be put away with, the old way of doing things. You see, when we look at the life of Joseph, things had to converge in order for him to be called from the prison into the palace to stand in front of Pharaoh. And that happened in an instant. And from that moment when Joseph interpreted the dream of Pharaoh, a new system was birthed. And that new system involved 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. But that system only came into being when God converged everything that needed to converge in order that the birth of this vision for God's timeline could come to pass. And so I feel like yesterday I was meditating on Pharaoh, and I feel like there's 4 types of Pharaoh. There's the Pharaoh that elevates, and that's the one that elevated Joseph to Prime Minister. There's the Pharaoh that enslaves, and that's the Pharaoh that made the Israelites work to build the buildings in Egypt. And so today I'll just mention the 2 pharaohs, and in a later video I might go into the other 2. But what God is showing me is that the pharaoh that seeked to enslave, and the pharaoh that seeked to imprison, and the pharaoh that seeked to put down and oppress, that is part of what will die in the new season, if you follow me. And in the new season, there'll be a pharaoh that is forced to elevate you and forced to bring about the visions that God has placed within your life and within your heart. And that's what I feel led to share today. So I hope this blesses you, and I hope it encourages you. Shabbat Shalom.